It's the start of a new week. Welcome back to Mets Daily. I'm your host, Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Live. Make sure you smash that thumbs up on this video, hit that subscribe button below, and follow me at Jake Brown Live on TikTok, X, Instagram, and subscribe to my YouTube at Jake Brown Live. Scan that code, become a Mets Daily Insider member for just $5 a month. For exclusive shows once the World Series is over, and guess what? The World Series is about to be set. The Dodgers are in. Shocker. They sweep the Brewers, the Blue Jays, the Mariners, Game 7 tonight in Toronto. What a series that has been. Speaking of the Brewers who were eliminated, swept, best record in baseball, we try to tell you they're frauds in October. One guy is not a fraud on that team is Freddy Peralta. And we have to discuss Freddy Peralta to the Mets and the possibility of that happening because, reports are circulating. That's the famous words here in the offseason. Is that the Brewers are going to consider trading Freddy Peralta, and they are going to potentially field offers for Freddy Peralta. Because at this point, why not? You know how the Brewers operate. They get guys while they're cheap, and then they let them go, and they're going to get expensive. Well, Freddy Peralta is about to get expensive. He's got an $8 million club option for 2026, which is going to be picked up. And that's dirt cheap for an ace starting pitcher, which means he's going to enter free agency after the 2026 season, which means he's probably going to get $20 to $25 million a year after that. So the Brewers would be wise to at least listen to offers. Should the Mets make a move for Freddy Peralta? Now, the first thing that comes to mind when you think about Freddy Peralta to the Mets is that David Stern spent, his years with the Brewers. He knows Freddy Peralta. He knows that front office. He knows that organization. Could that help in the Mets getting a deal done? Could that hurt? Could they may not want to help Stearns, who left for the Mets? Or could they say, you know what? We all like David. Not that they'll give him a gift offer, but I do think Freddy Peralta would cost less in terms of players than Tariq Skubal. Now, I don't think he would cost a bunch less, but I don't think he's going to cost the haul that Skubal will get. And by the way, I think the Mets are going to make a push for Skubal. As much as we say don't trade the farm, the Mets are going to talk, and there's going to be offers there. We'll see where that materializes. But, I can envision Skubal to the Mets happening, despite us saying don't give up the farm. Well, you don't have to give up the farm, but you have to give a nice package for Freddy Peralta. Now, Peralta is intriguing to me because of this reason. This guy goes out there and he pitches. 2023, 30 starts. 2024, 32 starts. 2025, his best, career high in starts, 33 starts. His best ERA of his career at 2.7. Most wins of his career at 17-6. The highest WAR of his career at 5.5. Second most strikeouts in his career. Most innings pitched in his career, 176 and 2/3 innings. He was an all-star. So he's coming off a career year. He was unbelievable for the Brewers, who are, the best team in the league. He is a guy that has postseason experience. He's been okay. A 4.32 ERA. He's made 6 starts in the postseason. So he hasn't been a world beater, but he hasn't been dreadful in the postseason. So, yeah, I'm intrigued by Freddy Peralta. You got to think, the Mets are looking at the same free agent market we are in terms of starting pitching. And Framber Valdez, Michael King, has a track record of injuries. It's not a ton of names on the list, so you got to think trade without giving up the farm. So what would it take to get Peralta? I think it's probably a little similar to Skubal, like probably a Jet Williams, maybe a Tong or Sproat, maybe less. Maybe it's Jet, maybe it's Wenninger, maybe it's Murabito and Vientos, maybe it's those guys. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Should the Mets make a move for Freddy Peralta? I would definitely call the Brewers and see what it would take, because I do think he is a frontline starter that you would have interest in. Another frontline starter from the NL Central the Mets should have interest in is Hunter Green. Another guy, I don't think he's going to cost the farm. Again, I don't think Hunter Green will cost as much as it'll cost to get Tariq Skubal. The intrigue with Hunter Green is this, and why the Reds might say, hey, we want more. Hunter Green's under contract here for a while. This guy is under team control for a few more seasons, where that becomes very interesting for the Mets, where, hey, you get a frontline starter for cheap for the next few years, 2026, 2027, 2028. In 2026, Hunter Green makes 8.3, 27, 15.3, and 28, 16.3. All very serviceable numbers for a frontline starter. Now, Green doesn't have the same track record in terms he does get hurt. He hasn't made the same amount of starts. 19 starts this year. He had a 2.76 ERA. 26 starts, his career high. Last year, a 2.75 ERA. 22 the year before. 24 the year before that. He's got 4 years of big league experience. So, listen, Hunter Green is not like a household name, maybe like a Skubal or Freddy Peralta, but he's getting there. He's getting close. Now, because of the lack of longevity and some injury issues, I don't think Hunter Green would cost the world for the Mets to go get. And, he's a good enough name to me that I would be excited by that. What would it take? I think Vientos in that Cincinnati ballpark becomes intriguing for them. Another guy like Nick Mirabito, one of the Mets' top prospects, could be interesting. Vientos, Mirabito, probably a couple of more. Maybe a Jack Wenninger, AA pitcher. But again, if you're talking about Vientos, Mirabito, Wenninger, and maybe another lower-level prospect, I think the Mets got to be all over that for Hunter Green. If you don't want to pay top dollar to some of these free agent pitchers, you got to think about trades. And if you're not giving up, Jet, you're not giving up Benj, you're not giving up Sproat, McLean, I think, is untouchable no matter where they go. I think Hunter Green, you got to listen. Let us know in the comments below, guys. Hunter Green, these are two frontline starters we're talking about that may not cost you as much in terms of traded capital as it's going to take for Skubal. Now, Skubal's 1 year, he's a rental. Peralta is 1 year, he's a rental. I think Peralta's contract is going to be less than what Skubal's going to get, or I think Skubal might start with $400 million. Peralta's maybe 200, 250, and Hunter Green, he's under control here for a good amount. Similar money to after this year to what Kodai Senga's getting. He's under control for the next 3 seasons under his contract. So Green, in terms of financially, has got to intrigue Stearns the most. So let's see where the Mets go in terms of frontline starting pitchers. But Skubal, Peralta, Green, I do think one of them ends up as a member of the New York Mets rotation in 2026. What say you? Speaking of what say you, let's get to your comments from Friday. We appreciate the comments, guys. Keep smashing them thumbs up. Hit that subscribe. Share the channel, please. Share it on Facebook. Share it with your friends. Let us know to come in. We're doing our best to make you a part of this Mets Daily community with us. I love seeing the comments. Some of you sound like idiots. So there's some disrespect, but a lot of you are respectful, and a lot of you do have terrific insight. So I don't think I'm above anyone just because I have a platform. I want you guys to be part of the family and talking with us. Our hope next year, if I'm living in the local area, is that we do a Mets Daily Day. And we have shirts. We do a game together. I can meet a lot of you. That's our hope for 2026, guys, is that all of us can go to a game together. We get a group ticket, whatever. We get a deal. We pregame, we have a good time, we have some brews, we have some drinks, and we have a blast. So that's the hope for 2026. So I do appreciate your comments, guys. So let's go to Friday's comments. We got a lot of comments from Friday. I'm going to have to go through these quick. There's a lot, guys. Again, we're trying to keep to this 10-minute model, 10 minutes a day. So here we go. JJG86, give me a break. You're basing your first baseman on run prevention. That's ridiculous. If you want to use age, I'm okay with that. But Pete's power far outweighs the run prevention that Naylor might slightly have over Pete. Here's the thing. Forget about RBIs and homer for a second. Defense, speed, average, on base, strikeouts, all favored by Josh Naylor when I had that discussion on Friday. So I think those are numbers and metrics that today's evaluators and the nerds and the analytics are looking at over just RBIs and homers. And, he didn't blow them away in terms of homers. He had, 8 or 9 more homers this year. RBIs, yeah, he had a lot more. When you have Juan Soto in front of you, you're going to have a lot more RBIs. So I'll say this, I think you got to consider Naylor more than you think. And, I think run prevention does. Pete was towards the bottom of the league in terms of defense. He was literally right at the bottom. So I do think those metrics are important. E-Money says, I feel like we're looking at all the negatives. Think about this team with Skubal as our ace and McLean as our 2. This season, our pitching caused the collapse. Of course, there were other factors like streaky bats and bad defense. Starting pitcher was terrible, which forced Mendy to overuse his bullpen arms. Bad mix. Yeah, listen, do I salivate at Skubal, McLean at the front of my rotation? 100%. If the Mets get Skubal, am I going to piss and cry about the prospects they trade away? No, I'll probably celebrate the fact that the Mets have one of the best pitchers in baseball and they have their game 1 playoff starting pitcher, and you got McLean. And listen, you still have Manai, you have Holmes, you have Peterson, you have Senga. We'll see who ends up getting traded and who stays. But of course, I think there's definitely positive to it. I don't want to look at all the negatives of Skubal. The negatives I'm looking at are in 5 years when some of these guys the Mets trade away, if any of them end up stars, we'll never hear the end of it. Why'd you trade for a rental? What was the reason? Look what happened. And we still talk about that with PCA. And that was years ago when he was in single A. We're talking about prospects now who are in triple A and some that are already have been in the majors. So I think it's a bit of a different story. But I obviously see the positives to Skubal. From J082, who would the Mets have traded to take on the Baez contract? Yeah, they're not going down that route again. No, Javi Baez in a nice season. I don't think he'll be back. From Stuart Austin 9123, if Pete walks, I'd sign 2 guys that has played. Josh Naylor to play first, Cody Bellinger to initially play center. These signings improve run prevention collectively more than replace Pete's power. These bats make the lineup longer. When Benj is deemed ready, they can move Bellinger to left and make Nimmo the DH. Mets should try to trade for an ace. The offseason go balls to the wall, sign Skubal the following offseason. Yeah, I mean, look, Stuart, if you can get Naylor, you get Bellinger. I love that idea. Move Nimmo to DH. I think that keeps him healthy. Maybe you trade for Hunter Green, and then you sign Skubal. I mean, you're talking about Skubal, Hunter Green, Nolan McLean as the 2027 Mets rotation. You start to drool. You know, you think of a team that could win championships. So, yeah, I'm not against that, Stuart. From NYAC 23, they'll get Skubal in a trade. I won't mind sending Spro and Tong. They'll send Benj as well, probably 2 more. See, that's insane to me. You're going to give Spro, Tong, Benj, 2 MLB ready. That's way too much for a rental at NYAC. I just think you're not getting, you may give one of Spro and Tong. You're going to give Spro and Tong? No. You can't do that. And Benj? No. I think honestly, McLean and Benj, I think the Mets view is untouchable, and I think they ideally would like to keep one of Spro and Tong. So I don't look at that as a realistic trade-off. I don't think it would even cost that much. Hollywood Boss 9394 says, never trust anyone with a beard. A lot of people with beards, so I don't know. This guy must be the old Yankee corporate way of thinking, says Hollywood Boss. Clearly not a boss because bosses have beards. Edwin Winkler 8443, do not rent Skubal. Does not make sense. I agree. Luis Fernandez says, Skubal is great, but he's not going to win the World Series by itself. He didn't do it for Detroit. Too much for one of your pitcher. Maybe he'll walk out. Next season, Stearns will give it what he wants. Stay losing for much talent. Yeah, I agree. Buddha approved. Secure Pete, secure Diaz. Use free agency. Don't destroy the farmer team. I agree. Again, I'm good with moving on from Pete. I do think Diaz has to come back. They got to be smart in free agency. And I agree. I wouldn't destroy the whole farm by making a ton of deals. Now, I think they should get one of these aces. But if Skubal's going to cost that much, I'd rather get a Green or Peralta. Mets are not getting this guy, so stop living in your dream world, says Scott. I mean, this is not a dream world, Scott. I think there's a reality that Skubal is getting dealt. Tigers would be wise to trade him. If he's walking anyway, there's no reason to keep him. Get the haul now while you can. Beetle 6192, I'm aboard with what you're saying too, Jake. Thank you, Beetle. Appreciate it. FJN 560, they need to do this to secure Pete or sign 1 or 2 fine starters. I don't think Skubal has anything to do with securing Pete, to be honest. K. Gordon says, me personally, I'd rather go for a rise for first. He had 292 and off year with perennial batting champion contender, average 31 strikeouts in the season. He's who we thought McNeil would be, and he's available. I wonder why nobody's discussing him. He has no power. He's not a great defensive player, K. Gordon, and he's just an average hitter. He does not walk. He hit 292, but his on base is like 320, and I think it's great. He didn't strike out. He puts the ball in play, but if you're going to hit 292, you need an OBP that's more than 30 points higher than your average. So I don't hate a rise. I just don't think he makes you better defensively. He doesn't steal bases. He's essentially a really good hitter, doesn't do much else. Would I take him to replace McNeil? Sure, but I don't think he is a massive upgrade over McNeil. From the Jerickson 01, bold take and the correct one. Appreciate the Jerickson. Scott Miller says, if Cohen wants, he will sign him. Watch the Dodgers. We need to be like them. Get the pitching. Alvarez won't be included. Yeah, I agree. From Arcade Perfect Reviews, I completely agree about Naylor. I would normally agree with you about not trading the farm for Skubal, but it's a strange time. Baseball is almost surely not playing in 2027. And in 2028, our core will be over the hill. And then we'll be 35, and Diaz will be 34. Soto will be 30, losing some of our best guys. Sell the farm, get the top 2 lines, sign Naylor and Belt, go all in. That's not a bad way to look at this. And that's not something I've talked about a lot, is the fact that, what if there is a lockout in 2027? Maybe he's right. Maybe now is the time to get Skubal before maybe there's no baseball. You don't get Skubal in 2027. So I don't disagree. I'm not against going balls to the wall, but, there's still going to be baseball after 2027. So I think you got to think about those prospects. And, hey, 2028 comes around. These guys are MLB ready, and you traded them away. So not a bad point, though, about the lockout. I'll say that. Now, no lock, there's a lockout, but there could be a work stoppage. We'll see. From Jarrett Robinson, he says, agreed, only pull the trigger for Skubal. Good God. If he's a lock to extend with us like Lindor a few years back. I agree. Totally agree with your rational take on Alonso, says Mark Batch. Our Mets fans are delusional. All things Alonso with their man crush. Mets collectively can improve first, second, and center. They also get more offensive production for catcher and third. Josh Naylor would be a great replacement. Yeah, appreciate it, Mark. Yeah, I mean, I think fans are thinking way too emotional with Alonso instead of thinking how they could collectively make the unit better. And I think a lot of people are just like, how are we going to get that production from first? Well, center field was a black hole. At second base, you can get a lot more production over McNeil. So you can get collectively 3 positions better over just 1 position better. I think that's more important. Thanks says, you built the farm system to make trades for like this. This is a proven arm. Quite frankly, I could care less about half these prospects. Yeah, I mean, listen, I know you say that, but when they're good, you're saying, oh, wait, we had them. So I get people don't care about prospects, but at one time, all these stars we were talking about were prospects and were in trades. So you don't want to lose the next, Mike Piazza, David Wright. You don't want to do that. There should be a world financially where we get Bregman and Naylor with Beatty moving a second. McNeil traded for a pen arm, says Radio Valorant. I said my piece somewhere else regarding Tariq. No thank you due to the high prospect and apparently wanting 10 years, $400 million. Nah, I'm good to build a complete team and let's be financially smart for once. I would agree. Trey Pacer says, I wouldn't trade Alvarez at 25 to 30 home runs right there under team control. They have Vienta, Sproat, Mauricio, Reimer, Jet Williams. I'm not giving up Tong or McClain. That's fair. That's fair. I'm indifferent on Alvarez. I think he is replaceable. I get wanting to keep him. We've been saying this a while. He is a guy that consistently has gotten hurt every single year. So I don't know if the longevity will ever be there with him, with the way, aggressive style he hits, the way he catches, the way he runs the bases. He plays the game in a way where he is prone to be hurt every year. So that's my issue with Alvarez, but I'd like him to be the catcher. William Sullivan, 1823, good synopsis. Appreciate it. And that's about it, guys. Appreciate your comments. Keep leaving them. Keep subscribing. Keep smashing that thumbs up. This is Mets Daily. Enjoy Game 7. I'm Jake Brown Live, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on October 21st.